Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, so today we are back to work over here on this John Deere, what's this, Hercules mill, I think it is, cane mill, that I'm restoring for a customer. And previously we took this thing apart and I carried it down to a place not too far from it that does sandblasting. I got them to commercially sandblast all this for me. They actually got it back to me really quickly. Usually it takes them a week or two. They actually got this done in a couple of days, but I've got all these parts back in the shop. And today, what I want to get started on is before I start painting and with priming and then painting, I know there were a couple of parts in here that we're going to need some repairs done to them, some brazing. So I'm going to go ahead and try to pull those out and get that taken care of. And then the next step will be to get some primer on these and start getting some parts painted. Some Babbitt poured in a couple of places before we can paint. But anyway, that's kind of what we're going to be doing today, is let's kind of getting started on this thing and slowly putting it back together. Let me pull out some parts that I saw that I know we need to work on, and we'll see about getting those fixed up. So here's the first challenge we got. This is the main pulley that drives everything, and you can see one of our spokes is cracked. It was that way when it came into the shop. So we're going to see if we can fix this. I think what I'm going to do is just kind of V out a good portion of this one, probably about at least a third of the depth. We'll just V it out with an angle grinder, and then I'm going to come back in and we'll braze it up, and then we'll flip it over. We'll do the same thing on the other side and see if we can get that put back together. I'm going to braze this, flame braze it. Again, brazing, like I've talked about many times before, is my preferred way of repairing cast iron. I haven't had very good luck trying to weld this stuff. But brazing is, the braze is actually pretty much as strong as the cast iron is. So you get a good braze job, it'll hold up just fine. So we'll see if we can get that done. All right, I got my area here. We're going to just come in here with an angle grinder and grind that out. That is just shy of the halfway point, so we'll just do that. And tell you what, I'm going to bevel this side out just a little bit more. I've got a rosebud here on my torch. This is just going to put a lot of heat into the part, and I'm going to start by preheating everything. All right, I've got a rosebud on here, and I'm starting by just kind of preheating my part up. I really don't want to just come in here and focus a bunch of heat in one place and it be cool all the way around everywhere else. So I'm going to take a few minutes and just kind of introduce some heat to the whole pulley and try to heat this up somewhat evenly. Now, we're not going to get it red hot evenly, but I do want to just kind of get some heat all the way around it. Once we get a little preheat in here, we'll work on brazing that. I'll probably change my tips to a brazing tip, and we'll go to work on it. So a quick modification to my setup here. I got to thinking about it. This pulley was sitting on that steel table, which is a big heat sink. So I put some clay fire bricks up underneath it just to isolate the pulley from the steel table, and should help with the heating and also cooling, where it will cool down a little bit slower. We'll wrap this up in a blanket when it gets time to cool down, so that it does cool down real nice and slow, but that should help a little bit. All right, we've been heating this up now for a while, and I've started concentrating a little bit more just in this area here, and we're starting to get a little color in there. I think what I'm going to do now is change to a brazing tip, and we'll finish this up. So let me do that real quick. The largest brazing tip that I got, I wish I had one a little bit bigger for this, but I'm going to go ahead and get a little more heat in here. We're about at brazing temperature right now. I'm going to try to get just a little bit more red in there. introduce my brazing rod. I'm using a rod that is pre-fluxed here. You can use the kind that where you manually flux it as well. I've used both, and we'll just kind of start putting a little bit of braze down in the bottom of that hole. I like to kind of get the whole bottom just kind of wet with braze, and then I'll start working on building it up, and it kind of builds up a little bit on its own while you're doing that. So just want to make sure that you're getting a nice liquid layer in there. Don't want any voids or air gaps or holes or anything like that in it. All right, we're making good progress here. Got a pretty good layer in there. I'm going to come back and kind of lay another layer on top of it. Trying to get that braze liquefied again. And we'll just add a little bit more in there. All right, pretty happy with that. Now what I'm going to do is flip this over, and I'm going to grind out the other side, and we'll repeat the process. All right, I moved all this over to my sawhorses where I could kind of get my shaft going straight down. I got up on some fire brick isolators again. I'm going to V this side out now. So I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but there's a big inclusion inside that spoke casting, which is probably why it cracked right there. But we'll be brazing it all up, so hopefully that won't be a problem in the future. Now I got my torch back out, and we're just going to heat this back up again. We still have all that heat that was in there before, so hopefully it won't take very long to get some color back in here. As for that inclusion that's down in that crack, it's not all that uncommon in castings. Basically, you'll get a little trash or something in the pour or a little air bubble in there, and you might get a little pocket on the inside of the casting that's not solid. And you really can't tell it from the outside. It looks fine from the outside, but you get these little imperfections in there. Not really a lot you can do about it, and unless you go to the trouble of like x-raying your castings or something like that, you really have no way of telling if they're in there or not. So not a big deal. Pretty much every casting is probably going to have some inclusions in it someplace or another. Usually not a problem, but on these spokes, it did probably create a little weak spot in there, and again, that's probably why that crack occurred there. I'm starting to see a little bit of color in there. We're going to do a little more heat, and we'll be ready to lay some more braze rod down in there. All right, I think we got it. So now I'm going to get this back over on the table, wrapped up in a welder's blanket, and let it cool down nice and slow. I'm just going to let that cool down overnight. We'll come back tomorrow and check it out. So while that pulley is cooling, I want to take a minute and look at this side. I know that we've got a broken piece on the bottom. I've got that piece to put back in here. I came over here, and now that it's been sandblasted, there's actually another crack kind of right through here. It doesn't go all the way through. This hasn't broken off, but it is cracked down here, so that's going to have to be repaired. And you can see the babbitt bearing. I knew that these babbitts here on the bottom were going to have to be replaced, so I didn't bother doing anything before they were sandblasted, but I do want to go ahead and melt these out. I wanted to get the grease and stuff out of them before we melted them out. So I'm going to go ahead and get that melted out real quick. I don't want to braze this right now because I got all my welding blankets wrapped up on the pulley, and I'm going to need that when I get through brazing this. So we'll probably just wait till tomorrow to do the brazing, but I can at least go ahead and get this babbitt melted out right now. Just got my rosebud back in here again. I got a ladle up underneath it to catch the babbitt. The babbitt melts it pretty easily. So we'll go ahead and melt it out. All right, let that cool down. While I'm waiting on parts to cool down over there, I'm spending some quality time over here in my parts washer cleaning up some of these bearings and pieces. I opted not to send these to the sandblaster because when I was taking them apart, the babbitt in these all looked to be in pretty good shape, generally speaking. There were one or two bearings that I had a little bit of concern about, but I just need to get them cleaned up really before I can make any assessments. But if I get these sandblasted, chances are you're going to ruin that bearing and have to replace it. So if there's no need to melt out all this babbitt and replace it, I mean, it just saves some work and time and money and everything else. So I'm just going to get these cleaned up real good. Like I said, it looks like the babbitt was redone on this at some point in time, and whoever did it did a pretty good job. So we'll just kind of play it by ear. You know, when I'm dealing with babbitt bearings, you know, a lot of times, particularly if you've got a machine that's been in operation and has been cared for, a lot of times all you got to do is just do a little scraping on the bearings, maybe tighten them up a little bit, take some shims out, and you can just keep rolling with them. You know, if things are in really bad shape, you just have to melt them out and start over. But I think we're going to be able to reuse at least most of these bearings. So anyway, I've got probably an hour and a half of scrubbing over here in the parts washer, which I'm really excited about. But it's got to be done, so I'm going to get it done. I've got the main side over here where we've got the broken piece in the bottom and this little cracked piece on the side. Getting ready to start working on this. Before I do anything else, I went ahead and did some weld prep in here, brazing prep in here, basically just kind of grinding that crack out that was in here. If you remember, this crack went across the front. This kind of is a C-shaped channel on this side, but it was cracked down to about right down here. I took and drilled a hole at the bottom of the crack. That often will stop a crack, and when you got a crack in cast iron like this. So anyway, we drilled a hole through there. And the idea here is that we'll come in here and braze this back up. I will note once again that we've got some inclusions in this casting. There's an inclusion here and there's an inclusion here, which probably, you know, that crack runs right through those inclusions. So that probably had a lot to do with it. This casting honestly is not the greatest casting in the world. I see lots of little bits and pieces in here that it just looks like there's a lot of inclusions in it, for whatever reason. But we're going to try to braze it back together. I think what I want to do first, though, is try to put this bottom piece back in to kind of bridge this back together. Once that's brazed together, we'll come down here and work on this. And let me show you what I got up here in the top, or it's actually in the bottom, but what I'm going to be doing there. So up here, I have the piece that broke out of here, which is right here. And I've done some weld prep on it, putting some little radiuses in there for braze to flow down in. I'm going to take my angle grinder and kind of knock some of that back. They actually tried to weld this, and when I say weld, I mean weld Looks like MIG welding. That's not a good idea on cast iron. It's just going to crack. It's going to crack right there in that weld every time you do it. Brazing is a much better option. So I've already ground the weld out of this. I'm going to grind some out of here. And then down here in the bottom, I've got a gap. So I actually found a piece of cast iron, and that's just going to kind of sit in there and kind of help bridge all that together, and we'll braze it all up. It's kind of my game plan. So again, I'm going to start on this area. Once we get this brazed, we'll do the crack down here and take care of that. So again, I'm going to start down here, and I've got my pieces kind of laid in here where I want to braze them back together. And I think what I'm going to do is start by just kind of getting this tacked in here, probably in 4 places, get it stuck in place, and then we'll start worrying about filling in the gaps. Now I've got this sitting on a piece of fire brick. This is just to give me some thermal insulation so I'm not welding directly on this steel table. That's just going to be a big heat sink and pull the heat out of the part. So anyway, we're going to get that done, and once we get this kind of weld brazed up, at least on this side, I'll flip it over. We'll braze up this side, and we'll braze it up on the bottom down there as well. So let's put some heat in here and see what we can do. All right, we'll start by putting the heat in here. I'm just going to heat the whole thing up a little bit. Once I get a little bit of a preheat in it, I will start concentrating into my brazing area. But I don't want to heat it up just in one area. I'll make things move. I want to just kind of slowly bring the temperature up over the whole thing. So it's going to take me a little while to get some heat in here before I can really get started good. All right, we are getting some heat into this. That bottom piece is a lot thinner. I'm really having to concentrate my heat on this thicker back piece. I got a little bit of a temperature gradient going on here, but it just kind of is what it is. I'm going to go ahead and kind of introduce a little brass down here in the bottom. And see if I can kind of get it tacked in over here. Got a pretty good gap I'm having to fill in there, so that's at least getting it started. I'm going to get over here now and get some heat in on this side, and again just trying to get it all stuck together before I really start trying to braze it. All right, that was a lot of brass. I think we got a pretty good braze in there. I'm gonna have to clean it up a good bit, but it's not pretty, but I think it's gonna work. Let me get this part flipped over and we'll work on the bottom and get that other crack filled in. I think while I got heat still kind of up in this area, I'm gonna try to work on this a little bit. See if we can fill in some cracks up here. Get this looking a little bit better. Over on this side, I just more or less got a V groove in there. This is pretty much cast iron on cast iron. Over here I had some big holes we had to fill in, and that's always kind of challenging. This should be a little more straightforward. I just need to get my heat kind of in here first. So I'm going to get a little preheat in here. Then we'll work on brazing it in. All right, I think I got the bottom done. I'm going to reposition again, and we'll start working on this web down here. All right, that is it. I'm going to wrap this up in a blanket, let it cool down real slow overnight. All right, so I've got this up on fire bricks, a blanket up underneath it, a blanket on top of it. And like I said, we're just going to let that cool down real nice and slow and hope everything stays together like it's supposed to. Give a little update here. I let this cool down, and I did come in here on the bottom side and just kind of grind that flat with a flap disc because this is going to have to sit on a piece. So anyway, that's looks good there. I don't see any cracks or anything. I think our braze job is successful. Down here on the this piece here, again, I just did a little bit of grinding just to kind of make it blend in a little bit better. When we paint that, it will not be very noticeable. Probably won't notice it at all unless you're just looking for it. So that looks good. I'm gonna flip it over and show you where we are on the other side. So down here, I just kind of cleaned it up. I haven't done any grinding on it, at least not yet, although I'm probably gonna have to do something. This has a bearing block that kind of rides in this bottom piece down here, and I need to get in here and probably, at least on this front side, kind of grind these flush. The back side, there's going to be a gap. That's the side that has the bolt in here that you'll be tightening up. So I'm going to probably just leave that in there. I don't think it's going to interfere with anything, but as this bearing slides forward, you kind of see it's kind of sliding up on top of that braze, and while probably not the end of the world, I think we can smooth it out. I just got to figure out what I can get in there with to do that. I may end up having to just do it with a file because I don't have a power tool to get in there to do it, I don't think. I'll play around, see what I can do, but I want to see if I can get that done. Well, guys, I remembered I had this little power belt sander, and I was able to get in here and just kind of sand those down a little bit. So now my piece fits in here and slides up on that front area there without any problems. So I think we're good to go there. Much happier with that. So I think this piece is done, but I got some more brazing I need to do. So let me figure out what we're going to do next and get that knocked out. So this piece here is a riser block that holds up one of the bearings off the part, and it's got a crack that kind of runs down through here. Again, I drilled a hole at the end, and I just want to braze that crack up. I've already gone in there with a wheel and kind of ground out a groove that needs to be filled in. So I'm going to fill that in with some braze, and we'll move on. So let me get the torch going and get this one knocked out. I think I'm just going to leave the hole open. Kind of braze back from there. All right. Wrap this up, let it cool down. So this is basically the matching part of the one we were just working on. It has a little more damage in it. Basically, you got a chunk that was broke out right here, and then this whole side had been replaced with a piece of steel that had cracked and broken back out. I'm going to try to braze this back together. They had tried welding it with, looks like a MIG welder. Again, not a good idea on cast iron. I'm going to grind all that out. I'm actually got a piece of cast iron that we're going to try to braze back in here. It's not the original piece, but it's a piece of cast iron nonetheless. So I kind of got this piece positioned about like I want it, and I'm gonna go ahead and try to get it brazed into place right there, and we'll let that probably cool down, and then I'll get my next piece and we'll just kind of continue on with it. So let's put some heat in this part. All right, again, changing over to a brazing tip. I got pretty well preheated. We'll go ahead and try to get this stuck in place here. All right. Again, I'll wrap that up, let it cool down. All right, I think I'm going to wrap that up and let it cool down. Well, guys, I think we got all of our repair work done. I did come in off camera and just kind of get everything finished, cleaned up. Again, this has all been sent out for sandblasting. I didn't get them to prime it. I primed it all myself, but we've got everything primed, pretty much ready for paint now. And as far as I know, I think I have brazed up everything that was broken on this or cracked or had issues. I may find something else as we go along, but I'm not aware of any other issues right now. So I will note that I got a little bit of a continuity issue going on with this video. I lost a little bit of my video footage. I don't know what happened to it finishing up this video, so I'm kind of coming in after the fact, wrapping this up. And I've actually already got the base for the cane mill built, which is going to be the next video in this series. But it is sitting on a wooden frame. You guys will get to see us building that coming up soon. We are to the point, after this, I'm ready to start probably getting some babbitt poured. I think will be the next thing. We'll have to pour the main bearings on here for this shaft and journals to fit into. Most of the babbitt on this we're going to not have to re-pour, but there are a couple of the bearings that are going to have to be re-poured, that being one of them. And yeah, once that's done, we can, I think, get the babbitt done, get it painted, and start putting this thing back together. So yeah, this one moving along pretty good. So guys, with that, that's a wrap. As always, thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Those thumbs up and comments are always greatly appreciated. Hit that bell icon up there to get notifications when new videos are posted. As always, a big, huge thank you to those who support the site financially through Patreon, PayPal, and YouTube memberships, all of which are great ways to help support my channel or any other YouTube channel out there. If you find that you are getting value out of this content, please consider contributing a little bit something extra, because it does help out a lot. And with that, guys, I'm going to get out of here. We'll catch you on the next video. Again, as always, thanks for watching.